Hi, this is Anneke van Giersbergen, and you are listening to the Progcast.
Welcome back to the Progcast. I'm your host, Randy Salo, and with me today, calling in from the Netherlands, I'm very delighted to invite Anneke van Giersbergen onto the show. Hi, Anneke.
Hi, man. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. You have an album coming out on February 26th via Inside Out. The darkest skies are the brightest.
Yes.
Are you excited?
Very, yeah. It's always like you always write and record for a year, maybe sometimes more. And when it's done and you're happy with it, then it's, very excited. Yeah.
The last few years, people that listen to like progressive metal and stuff have know the projects you've been involved with, like Sundfør and the Gentle Storm, and of course your work with Devin Townsend. But this album reflects the singer-songwriter in you. That those of us that follow you on social media will know that that's a whole other part, a big part of your musical world. Apart from the personal, intimate nature of the record, did you plan to record a more singer-songwriter album in the future?
Well, not when I started writing this album, because I was actually going to write a metal album for my band Vuur, because I wanted that project to keep on rolling like a diesel train, just to keep it fueling. But everything that came out of me and out of my pen was just like really soft and emotional, and so I had to change my ways. I had to change plans and make this solo acoustic album. However, I've been wanting to make a solo acoustic album for a long, long time, because I've been always doing solo acoustic shows, just me and the guitar, in an intimate setting. And but I never have the album to accompany those shows. So therefore, I'm also happy that that this is coming out now that I made one.
That actually leads me to a question that I would ask later first. But first, let's talk about the record. The title, "The Darkest Skies Are the Brightest," I think this can certainly speak to a lot of us in some way right now. I feel like I can also draw some feelings from this title. But what is the album for you, and what does the title mean for you?
Well, in we all have our difficulties in life, right? It's not a question of trying to avoid our challenges or so, but if we face them head on, it's all about how you deal with them. And I think you have to go through a little bit of darkness to get to the light place in your life. And I think in the end, we all want to get there, but just sometimes we just don't know how. But in the midst of this dark place where we sometimes are the answers, So we always should look for the light at the end of the tunnel, the light place. It's another way of saying every dark cloud has its silver lining. We have to go through these challenges in order to grow as human beings.
And I mean, you've been kind of open about the subject of the record, but what inspired the making of this album then?
Well, there was a few years back, there was a lot happening at the same time in my life. So in my personal life, I had some struggles in my relationship with my husband Rob, and my family, and we individually had a lot of stuff going on, like Rob and I. But also there was Vuur, my band, that I was, getting to, wanting to be on the scene. I started this like whole project from nothing, with a new name, new music. And that was like slow. That all went slower than I expected. So I had to like work super hard to keep the band on the road and so on. So at one point it was just too much. Like anything separately would be okay, but it was it was stacking up. It was too much. I had to, pull the brakes and get myself into confined space, a little house in the woods, start writing, start clearing my head, start this creative process about this huge amount of chaos in my life. And that worked out well because I could clear my head, I could focus, I could write songs that kind of helped me in a cathartic kind of way to cope with everything.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I mean, I think there's like these two sides to being an artist that maybe is difficult for people who aren't to understand. That in one way, perhaps this was a means for you to deal with things, and now you're releasing it to the public and kind of bearing your soul. And in this case, some very, very personal things you're sharing with the world. How is that process now of releasing these things that are very personal to you, very intimate to you and your family even, and giving them to the world to then make a part of their story in a way? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, it's a double feeling because on the one hand, you kind of release this music in which all your emotions and feelings are locked up, and it's now open to everybody to criticize as well, or to love. But that's sometimes it's always a little bit scary, but now for sure because it's so personal. On the other hand, when this whole pandemic situation started, I was just in the midst of writing, at the end of writing, recording this album. And I was thinking now, okay, so now the world is burning. There's so many things going on with the Me Too and the Black Lives Matter. And so my stuff that I'm going through seems futile, it seems not important. So should I talk about this? But I found out that a lot of people are kind of going through the same things as I am because it's just life, everybody goes through the same thing. Everybody's looking for love. Everybody's fighting for what they, believe and so on. So in the end, everything that I'm going through is just universal because, it's no drama, but it's just life. And then I found, if I just talk about it, I give other people the opportunity to just think about things or talk about it, and get a lot of reactions about people sending their life story or their things that they are dealing with. So that feels good. Yeah.
Since you went away and sort of wrote these things on your own, your voice, your guitar, how did the actual recording process of the album come about? What was the mechanics of like putting the record together?
Well, at first, like I said, I went to this little house and I recorded a lot of demos. So I was writing and recording then. Also with the idea that when something is like really good or just has like this good flow or it's okay or the vocal lines are good, then I'm allowed to keep it that way. So like we can build. There's already building blocks for the later recording sessions. So that I did that, and then I went to Gijs Kolen, his studio. Gijs is a friend of mine. He's a producer, very good guitar player. Played a lot of all the instruments and everything. So, so I went to his studio, and then went from there. Went from my demos, and we recorded obviously a lot of stuff. So it was kind of like, even with Gijs in the studio, it was nothing fancy, just me and him sitting at the desk and thinking, okay, this needs some percussion, and we did a lot of body percussion, and stuff like that, and everything that he had in his studio, like old drum kits, and we kind of mixed and matched stuff to make like new percussion kits and so on. So it was like, it was very very relaxed atmosphere.
And apart from the work that you did and the producer, did you have any other soloists come on or any other instrumentalists to play any parts?
We had some additional instruments. Like there was two different drummers did some drumming. on the album. We had a bass player, did a few songs, and then we have this wonderful um, uh, violin quartet, string quartet, and I asked somebody to write for this string quartet some arrangements, and he did this like in this amazing arrangements for a couple of songs, like I think 4 or 5 songs, and they're called the Magic Strings. They're 4 women. They're amazing. So they played on the album too, and they made the songs way better and beautiful. So yeah.
When I was listening to the record, I thought a lot about your. I actually recently watched the isolation sessions you did last year, and you actually did "Losing You," like an early version of that song. And when I heard it, when I heard you play it, I already had heard from the record the version, and it made me think like how when this pandemic releases its grip on all of us, and you're able to go back on the road. How do you imagine bringing this record on tour? Would you like to do it just with you and the guitar, or would you like to bring more, or what did you have in mind for that?
Yeah, I would like to do that. That, like you said, just like me and the guitar in a personal, intimate setting, doing these songs, and also including some back catalog stuff, but also all solo acoustic. And then perhaps when we have some specials, I can ask the string quartet and ask guys to, accompany me on the guitar. We form a little band, but initially the idea is to just for me to go on the road with the guitar.
What kind of venues would you look for that kind of a tour?
Well, there's a lot of seated venues, obviously, and theaters that are very good for this kind of situation. But even in a club, you can do this kind of setting. Even people can put chairs in a club, but even people standing. It's all about creating this atmosphere together, with the audience. So that's where I'm going for. I've been doing that for a long time as well.
Yeah.
So, and I love it. I love this way of playing, because also in a solo acoustic environment, you can tell a little bit of stories and crack some jokes and be like a little bit closer to the audience. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I thought of that when I watched the isolation sessions, that you continued to speak to the audience, although they weren't necessarily present in the room, and then you don't have this return from them, or laughter, or such like that. So it would be great to see you back on the road and with your people. So
for sure. I think a lot, big percentage of an atmosphere, maybe 50-50, is the audience reacting and to have that atmosphere. However, it wasn't, I was a bit nervous to do this for the first time with no audience, but I would just picture everybody, sitting on the couch, listening, and laughing at my jokes. But there's nothing like the real thing, man. Nothing.
As a film person myself, I wanted to ask you a few questions about the videos you did, because I think they're really cool. The ones you did for Hurricane and My Promise, particularly. I think you worked with the same director for both, and they both had a sort of similar feel to me, like the way things were staged, the way the camera moved, and the stories sort of within that movement. I really admired. Would you talk about the two videos?
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, I work with a Belgian guy. He lives in Holland, Jasper, and he's a wonderful director who is very into working with musicians, and he knows music, and that's a big part. Like, he knows what you're talking about. He knows what you want to portray. So that's a big plus. And he and his team are great. So he knows exactly, like, if I had an idea for a video, he knows exactly how to put that into a visual. And it's something that an auditive artist is not particularly able to do, right? So you need somebody to make your videos. At least I do. So yeah, and also in the videos, it's important, as in the songs and as in the albums, to portray like the darkness and the light, to find a balance between darkness and light. So sometimes the lyrics could be dark, but you kind of see this massive light, environment where we are in, and so on. So that was pretty important to me, to have that.
The restaurant you filmed in, I think My Promise, it looks amazing actually. like a
Isn't
very
it?
cool
Yeah.
space, and how you used it in, and the camera work to kind of reveal the story and the different couples intersecting stories to the end.
Yeah.
I thought was a very great use of the space.
Yeah, well, the cool thing is the restaurant is a few blocks from our place,
Oh,
and we used to eat there all the time, but now it's obviously closed with the
yeah.
pandemic, and so yeah, we could film there totally, no problem. So that was nice, and it's an old machinery building for Philips. So it has all these like huge machines, and it's great. So it's a great environment, and it's super light. So, and we wanted to, with this video, we wanted to have kind of the feeling of a one taker,
Yeah.
and then just moving through the building, singing the song, and then you would see the difficult people, the different people in their in various stages of life.
And in Hurricane, I had the feeling like with the first set that you had, I call it a set because it felt to me like a bit like a TV set, right? Like this TV living room, and then
Yeah,
you like,
we built it. Yeah, we built the whole thing. Yeah.
What was the concept behind that? And then you sort of tear down the curtain and then enter this other place with the lights hanging. And would you talk about your vision for that?
Yeah, it's like in your own surroundings, in your own living room kind of feeling. And the lyrics are a little bit like reluctant, and it's still uncertain as to where we have to go from here. And then with the curtain dropping and with everything going black, then sometimes there's the answer, right? You have to search for the light, and you see all these little light bulbs, and it becomes lighter and lighter, and more light bulbs. So more and more, more and more ways to get to the light from there on. And the whole thing goes wide open if I see my bandmates and we make this music together, or in other words, we kind of solve this whole thing together, So it's kind of a story, but romantic enough and poetic enough for anybody else to put their own story into it.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think of like the pandemic situation, being stuck at home and the need to be with others,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Totes. Yeah.
One last question about the videos. You at the end, I believe, of both videos, you have this heart that's like, what is that exactly? What is the construction? It's
the heart is in all the videos, and it's in the photos and in our artwork and everything. And it's kind of the broken heart that's been healed, right? So it's all little bits and pieces put back together. And I also was very inspired by this Japanese art form that's called kintsugi. And it says that if something is broken and then fixed again, it's much more beautiful and interesting because it has been going through something. So for a life, somebody's life, that's the same thing. For a person, when you go through things, you can see, you have a life because you go through things. If you go through nothing, you're shallow, And even so, with real scars, people who have real scars, we always are intrigued, like, oh, that's a beautiful scars. Were you in the war? Did you have an accident? What happened? Are you burned somewhere? Or and so people are instantly more interesting if they have scars that they can show. So perfect people they don't exist, And I think this is a lovely philosophy. And they even say if you fix it with glue that is golden or silver, then it's even more beautiful. You put the emphasis on the things you have fixed, and that I think that's so. This heart is the whole kintsugi thing, and I love it.
Yeah, cool. So with the album coming out, what do you have planned for the rest of the year as far as one can plan? What else do you have going on in your musical world?
Yeah, well, I'm planning something really nice to go online after the album's been released. So that's kind of because we can't tour, we can do something online. But if I can tour again, if we get the green light, I will go extensively with my guitar. I will be doing the Salo acoustic show for this album. But I think proper touring will start in 2022. And until that time, maybe we can do bits and pieces in summer. After summer, we'll see. And then I still have ideas, man, for songs. So I'll just keep writing as long as we're in lockdown. And, stay creative and see what happens, man.
The last thing I want to ask you before we have to let you go is we have a little section at the end of our show called What's in Your Walkman? And we try to, we ask our guests if there's anything that they're listening to, album or single, that speaks to them at that moment that they would share with our listeners or with your fans, if there's anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, I've been listening, for a longer time now, but she always comes back to me. Is a singer-songwriter called Susanne Sundfør, and she's from Norway. And she makes this beautiful music, and sometimes it's like electronic even, but a lot of her stuff is also acoustic, I guess. She has this voice like an angel. So I most of my favorite vocalists are all male, Freddie Mercury, you name them, I love male vocalists, but Susanne Sundfør is amazing. I keep listening to her. She's great. Yeah.
Is there a particular track we could add we make a little playlist for the episode where we could include it?
Yeah, it's called, one of the tracks I love most is Reincarnation.
Okay, I think we're about out of time with your schedule, so I want to say thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, man.
We wish you all the best with the release of the record.
Thank you so much.
And to our listeners at home, thanks for listening to the show. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and listen to great music. The Progcast is a production of Stuus Media and is presented by the Prog Space. It is produced by Randy M. Salo, Janine Stengel-Lewis, Blake Lewis, and Dario Albrecht. Our theme music is by This Is Not an Elephant, and Van Kirsch does our graphics. New episodes of the Progcast drop every Monday and Thursday, and don't miss our Friday Top 5 episode where we discuss our favorite new releases from that week. For more interviews and reviews in the written form, check out theprogspace.com.